Over these years, there's been stories told about mirrors and reflections. You know that story about the king who sees himself reflected in the lake. Birbal holding up the mirror to the king to see his real, true image. The son who sees his father's face when he looks in the mirror. The princess whose soul is stolen by her mirror. The abbess who sends worthy souls to confront a mirror. But there's another story of mirrors and reflections. It was the day after the Jewish New Year, a day that was usually one of celebration and rejoicing. But in this village, everyone was sad. Everyone was morose and feeling great trepidation, because it was known that an emissary of the Tsar was coming, and everyone knew that the Tsar had no love for the Jewish people. So when the emissary arrived and all the people of the town were gathered, the emissary said to the people, "You know that our Tsar has no love for your kind, but he has a question for you. It is said that your God is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, but he is invisible. So the Tsar's question is, how does this God know God self? And the Tsar has decreed that if you do not answer this question within a week, that he will close your synagogues and your schools." Now the people were very, very, very upset about this, and when the emissary had gone, they all gathered around to ponder this question: if God is all powerful, all present and all knowing, how does God see God's self when he's invisible? So pondering on this and discussing it, no one could come up with any answers. So of course in those circumstances, where do people turn? And of course it was to their rabbi in this situation. So the people went to the rabbi and posed this question to him. Well, the rabbi scratched his head and pulled his beard, and he said, "Well, I'll have to ponder this question." And the people said, "But we have just a week. If we don't answer this question, then the Tsar will close our synagogues and our schools." So the rabbi prayed. He called on God, but no answer came. And he thought perhaps it was the distractions of the daily life and the duties that he had to undertake that disallowed him to do so. So he decided to go to the forest, to go into nature, to be surrounded by the sounds and peace and all that nature represents for us. But when he did, even after several days, no answer came for him. And it came to be the day before this question had to be answered, and still he'd not arrived at any kind of answer. So with a very heavy-laden feet, he made his way out of the forest and was on his way back to his abode at the synagogue when he happened to meet a young girl who came to his shul, learning Hebrew and the ways of the Jewish faith. And after their greetings, the young girl said to the rabbi, "Rabbi, why is it that you are so sad?" And the rabbi explained the situation and said that this question that had been posed, if God is all powerful, how does God see God's self? And the little girl said, "Oh, Rabbi, I can answer that question for you." And so the rabbi said, Please. And the young girl said, "But Rabbi, since the very earliest moment when we came to the shul, you told us that we were all made in God's image. So if God wants to see and know God's self, all he has to do is see us." The rabbi was, of course, flabbergasted by this. And he immediately went back to all the people of the town and told them the answer to this question. Since God made all of us in God's image, then to know God's self, he just has to see us. So when the emissary of the Tsar came back to the town to receive his answer, the townspeople, en masse, with complete and utter consensus, answered the question. The Tsar himself was content with the answer, so the synagogue and the schools remained open. What is the deep, deep meaning for us of this story? We've lived that time when we looked out at life and saw it as reflections. If we perceived anger in someone, we thought, yes, well, if I see anger in them, then I must have anger in me that has to be addressed, so forth and so on. And the stories that have been told. The guideposts along the way. But what does this story evoke for us? if we're all created in God's image, in God's self, to see self merely looks at us. What is the deep meaning of this story?
It reminds me of the story you've told in the past about when God decided to hide peace, and they were going to hide it in the mountains, hide it in everywhere, and they decided to hide it within. They'll never look there. And that's where you have to look to find it. And so when you're externalized and you're actually looking for something externally, you may not find it. If you go in, you probably will. And so that's what that story is about. It's a nice story. And